Right. Hey guys, good to see you. Um,
G'day.
yeah,
Hi,
welcome.
morning or afternoon,
Yeah, you
depends where you are.
guys are definitely in probably warmer weather than we've had up here. Uh, Bruce,
Yeah.
Bruce is joining us from New Zealand, and Lawry from Brisbane, Australia. Quick introductions. Bruce Wilson, a master coach, been coaching for over 22 years, has coached probably well over 100 coaches, right, Bruce? Um,
Easy.
and worked with many business owners and teams over that period of time. Primary focus is not just the business, but the person behind the business. The personal development is very key for you in your coaching style. It's the person needs to do the work, so we need to work on the person, not just what they need to do. So,
Yeah.
awesome. Looking forward to our chat today. Um, Lawry Scandar from Brisbane, Australia,
Good
psychologist.
morning, good morning.
Yeah. Has been consulting, coaching, business entrepreneur, has worked in the corporate world for a period of time, and worked with small business owners, has done some site work with. You've been involved in many different areas, really, and all to do with mostly behavior. I can use my
Yeah,
my language.
yeah.
Yeah, very cool.
Common denominator, the human in the middle of the system.
Hmm. So, guys, what are we going to talk about today? I think you guys know the audience is coaches. We want to be able to share with coaches something that would be useful for them, that would empower them, better coaches in the community. And I think we were touching on something earlier on. Maybe you guys can elaborate a little bit more on that. I think the theme was how do coaches separate their consulting hat from their coaching hat, or do they fall into that trap quite regularly?
Or is it a trap?
Yeah, yeah. Well, what do you think, Laurie?
Well, as a topic, I think it's interesting to cover because a number of people that I deal with, and I think for you and Bruce as well, you come across people who do work with clients on a continuum between coaching, the so-called journey of, well, not so-called, the journey of self-discovery, where at some point that may move along the continuum to more a consulting role, which is, hey, coach, I need your advice. I need your structured knowledge to come in to help me with my business or whatever it might be. And at some point in time, potentially, the coaching through to consulting hat role gets a little bit clouded, so that something, and I'm thinking of this more in terms of what happens to you as the coach when this is going on for you. So where's your headspace in? When am I in role? Yeah, so that to me is an interesting one. What about for you guys?
It's an interesting point because if I just take it back a little bit, Laurie, is how do people end up being a coach? Why do a lot of people end up being a coach? Is because they've come out of some role where they've got a level of expertise, right? And they think that that's what coaching is about, is to bring my expertise into the business. Bruce, I see you nodding. What do you think?
No, it's that wry smile that's dangerous when you said that.
Yeah, well, I got a bit of a philosophy around this. It's like people become a coach because they want to help people get the best out of themselves. And the reason that they think that they want to help people get the best out of themselves because at some deeper level, they're wanting to find ways to get the best out of themselves.
Wow.
So, that's what's lurking below the surface. So I agree with you. People come out thinking, oh, they've got this range of business knowledge and business skills. I can help a lot of people reach their potential. And then they realize that if they're going to do that, they have to start working on their own potential and their own limitations. So in terms of consulting, I think a lot of people can come into a business and say what could be done to improve the business, but a coach is about increasing the performance of the people in the business.
Mm.
So that requires a whole nother set of skills and attitudes.
So that's really interesting because I was just talking to some people earlier this week, and they were referencing the checklists they have to and the tools that are available to look at financials of the business, or to look at the processes in the business, or the marketing and the sales in the business. You're saying, that's not, that's fine. Those things have been around for a very long time. Who's looking at the people?
Yeah. Well, my favorite coaching program is to go to a business owner and say, what are the 5 things you should be doing that you're not doing? And then start to coach them so they have the capacity to do the things that they haven't been doing. Because the issue might not be knowledge.
Mm.
The issue might be that they're challenged in their decision making that would potentially upset someone else. The classic example in business is the owner who puts up with an employee who's aggressive or obnoxious or any combination of that because they still bring in the money, but the real issue is that they don't have the personal go-to to be able to draw the line and have expectations of other people.
Yeah.
Mm.
So the continuum then really is about, on one hand, this sounds like it's stating the bleeding obvious, but it's about their behavior and what's behind their behavior. And then how the consulting is, how does that, the transition is then, how does that behavior of the business owner, the leader, then impact the systemic part of what's happening in their business?
That's right.
And it's that interaction. I think that's where some people get a little bit muddled. Which role am I playing? Yeah.
So just the times that I do consulting, so I do, when I'm working with a client, if they are plain ignorant, they don't know how to do something, and we're in a dire situation, I'm going to say, do this, do this, do this. And because they're desperate, they're going to go, okay, I'll just do what I'm told. But, human beings, after a while, don't like being told what to do. They want a little bit more self-actualization. So once we're through the crisis and the ignorance, then I need to change more into empowering them to do the work out of their growing awareness. Because if there's one thing that I think is the core of working with people to develop them as a coach, is to increase their awareness of, and Nagi, that's why I value the AccuMatch so greatly, is that people get awareness of what they know at a subconscious level, but their behavior is laid out and they go, this is how you behave. And these are the impacts on your decision making, on your interactions with other people, which is producing the outcomes that you complain about or you want to change or develop.
Perfectly said, because I think, there's a phrase that we use a lot in our business, and me and my business over the years. So I'm working with a client. So what is our focus? Well, actually, our focus is you and you in your business. Don't never take the you out of it, the person out of it, because ultimately, if there's a skill gap or a structural gap, or a systemic issue or a process issue, that's sure. There can be some advice and there can be some tangible. Hey, you need to retweak this particular accounting or end-to-end process or whatever it might be. But then it's about what is it that you are bringing to it constantly. And as we know, you've raised AccuMatch, obviously, but being able to pinpoint with somebody's AccuMatch map, being able to help them pinpoint the behaviors. And then we go to the next level and say, how is this behavior demonstrating itself or showing up in your system, in your business? And then it's like, oh, so actually it is about me.
Mm.
Yes, it is about you.
Mm.
Come fix my business. Good. Let's talk about you. Mm.
So what I'm hearing is coaching can sometimes focus a lot on, well, you, the client, knows what you need to do, and I just need to ask you the right questions to help you go through a little bit of self-discovery. What I'm hearing here, though, is sometimes there is a knowledge gap. They get stuck.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
past, that knowledge gap has been maybe, how do I set up a CRM, or how do I work out my break even? How do I get my sales? And now we're discovering that there's actually another knowledge gap, is what I'm hearing you guys say, and it is about themselves. What are they doing that's causing them to get the result they're
Mhm.
getting? What
Mhm.
are they
Yeah.
not doing? What are other people around them
Yeah.
doing or not doing?
So to that point, I agree. The first stage that I like to take people through is life is a mirror.
Mhm.
So whatever is occurring, like my business reflects me 100%. And most people haven't got even that level of awareness that their decisions, their actions, their behaviors have produced what they've got in their life,
Mm.
because so many of them are unconscious.
Yep.
And it's just, and people will use this phrase often, but that's just who I am, or that's just how it is. And it's going, no, no, no. This is a variable equation. Yes, I agree. We're all unique human beings. I mean, anyone looking at the three of us will really understand that we are totally different in our appearance and our qualities. However, we're not fixed to be any one thing for the whole of our life because of one decision that we may or may not have made early in life.
Mm.
There's, and that's, what your proposal is with Acumatch is that when people have awareness of behaviors, they can deliberately introduce new behavior, which will in turn mirror itself in the way that people respond to them.
Mm.
I think the powerful thing in what you've said is the mirror. I love the way you've said that. Your business is the mirror of who you are, and 110% on board. And I think the power of Acumatch also needs another foundation stone underpinning it, which is the role of a coach, is to help a business owner recognize that very point. Because in the absence of that, and the behavior map is one of the ways to go, look how it's showing up. Because in the absence of that awareness, conscious awareness, as you say, what I tend to see in people is, you're familiar with the concept of the external locus of control. Oh, my business is failing. We'll go there. But the control is outside of me. The business isn't working because of that person. Or I bought that product, it failed. That person has screwed me. That person doesn't know what they're doing. My supplier has gone to the dogs, and their product, their supply is not useful. Rather than, hang on, there's still a common factor: my behavior in my business. So without that awareness, the blame, or if the business is successful, the latching onto the business success without recognizing their role in it. So it actually works in both ways, where I've seen people not actually laud their own success by, hey, I've really grown, rather than, hey, my business has grown. How did it happen? I don't know. Well, do you think you might have had a role in that? Always about the business owner. And the more and more I do this work, and it's now many decades, a bit like two of you guys, the more I see that it's vital to get people we're dealing with develop that internal locus of control. In other words, what happens around me, I have the ability to influence, not always to change, but I can always choose. The old story, I always choose my behavior. And that's about bringing it to a conscious awareness until such time as it becomes a more natural, unconscious process. Wow,
Thanks,
there's three
guys.
more workshops we can run. What are called sessions?
Yeah. Well, it just made me think. I'm training a group at the moment in Acumatch, and one of the phrases that I'm now using with our trainees is behavior gets you the response it deserves.
I love that.
And the second layer of that is beware of what, and I have to be careful how I say this here, beware of the words that people use, because words are at the conscious level. And for many decades, we've heard how body language is so important. And it's that body language is the behavior aspect of the unconscious responses. And most people, the majority of people, haven't mastered how to control their behavior to project exactly what they want to project. Otherwise, they would be actors. Okay? So, the unconscious behavior really shows up in our body language, and it's instantaneous. It happens unconscious. The words, as I stalled a couple of times to correct my words, are at a conscious level. So when the two don't match up, guess what? Behavior is the piece that gets you the response.
Conscious behavior.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and we back to the coaching aspect and the consulting side of things. It's how many business owners really understand that people disconnect very quickly when the words don't match the body language. I guess that's what we've really been talking about. What point? Well, let me ask a different question. How do you teach someone to then become aware of that?
Well, my first response to that is get them to do an action match behavioral map. I mean, because the great thing about being a coach, so part of what I believe is really important is to establish the permissions. So when I take on a client, if I'm going to be coaching them, raising their awareness and getting them to look at what the mirror is and adapt their behaviors and their attitudes, then I need that to be part of the permissions I get right at the start. So for example, I've worked with a business owner and he goes, Bruce, all I wanted you to do was to improve my sales. That's consulting. Okay, flow chart your sales process, do this, do this, do this. That's what he wanted. I didn't have the permissions. So step number one, establish the permissions in the relationship before I start wandering off into coaching, as opposed to what most people take me on for is, I want you to fix this thing or give me the knowledge to do this.
That's a really good example, because I've had the opposite. Where I've been asked to come in and deal with the team dynamics, and I'm seeing lots of things with the business, and they're saying, no. We want you. Lawry, have you seen anything like that?
Oh, absolutely. And very much as Bruce has said, in working with a client, I actually get permission on both ends of that continuum. And it's a little bit like if you're not prepared to work with, I'll be quite, you can imagine, quite overt with them. If the answer is no, I just want that, so I'm not your guy. You won't be ready for me because this is where I will work. For me, you asked the question, how do you teach someone that awareness? Now, I don't know about teach is quite the right word. How do you help them become aware that their behavior is creating whatever it is, the mirror, right? Creating whatever it is within their organization. And this is where, again, the map is useful. Anything that helps a person go, yeah, this is my behavior, that's great. Now let's look at what's happening in the organization. Let's have a conversation about what do you think are the drivers of these patterns in your organization? And then we'll go through the usual, well, I don't have a very skilled sales force. Yeah, good. I don't have that. I've got a really sharp accounts person, so that's really in place. Look, the plant we've got's a little bit old, but we haven't got the funds to make it. All right. So then we get past all the excuses. And then it's like, so what role do you play? And sometimes some people have got some awareness where they go, it might be about my recruitment practice. It might be about the way I lead, well, I think you used the example before. If you've got somebody who's an aggressive employee, but the business owner just doesn't have the behavior set, the skill set, nor the attitude that says, hey, I'm actually going to draw a boundary around that, rather than, oh, I've dealt with managers who are scared of some of their employees. It's quite a fascinating dynamic. It's like, well, it's not about the bad employee. Well, that is, deal with that. But what role are you playing? So we get to the point where the permission is calling it when it's an excuse rather than a responsible behavioural connection. At some point, they must get to that point of, I use the word must, I would love them to get to that point of recognising my behaviour is a key influencer in my organisation's culture, in my organisation's performance, because then we define organisation as also a bunch of other people. So it's all about the relationship.
And can I add something to that, Nagi?
Yeah, go for it.
All of this floats, of course, in getting the correct context. So,
Yeah.
so establishing the context for the work that we're doing, and like when I'm working with a business owner, everything I do, even be it consulting or coaching, is in the context of what they say is the important shift they want in their business or their life. Because without context, I've found, like, if something's just a good idea, that's not the same as like, I've really got to do this because I want to show my brother-in-law that I'm not the useless git that he says I am. That's a really good, powerful context to have these conversations where, oh, I'd just like to see if we could increase our sales a little bit. That's not sufficient context to have a really aware conversation and start probing into how you're noticing your behaviors that produce that which you say you don't want.
That's a very powerful foundation stone for that sort of relationship with a client. Absolutely, context. Because one of the things I've been working with another colleague of mine around a whole innovation program is about allowing people, helping people, clients, get clarity about what are the relevant and significant, emphasis on the word significant, drivers for why your business is the way it is, or why you want it to be a certain way. And if those drivers are just a whim, wouldn't it be nice? They're not significant, they're not sufficient. And therefore, what's the expression? It's the emperor's wearing, the invisible cloak, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've talked one time about establishing a commitment, and are they committed to do the work? Just, it'd be nice to have some more. Well, is that strong enough commitment to actually? Because commitment leads to resilience and pushing through no matter what happens.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that conviction, commitment, you won't have the resilience that it takes to push through when things get tough.
I notice I'm making notes, guys, just stealing a few ideas.
Yeah, it's always great,
The invoices in the mail across the seas, or is that New Zealand Australian bubble open yet?
No, I'm afraid it doesn't get across.
Doesn't get across.
We don't let it in.
So an interesting thing that I know that you guys do your version of this with clients is when you do the test of commitment, the test of is your driver or are your drivers, and they can be external to them as well as internal drivers. It could be, hey, my industry is shifting and I'm not moving, and therefore I'm shifting. I need to shift because the industry is, and I'm not going to keep up. I'm still making things out of stone when they're all using technology, right? But then you ask them a real simple question. What if we didn't make this happen? What would really go on? And if the answer is wishy-washy, and it would normally be if it's a whim, And it's like, we don't have a driver. We don't have a sustainable, strong enough, sufficient driver. And therefore the individual won't have. The commitment means there's an element of, I'm emotionally buying into doing this work. And I'm sure you've come across clients when you talk about the emotion, it's like, oh, we're talking business here. So, yep. No emotion, no commitment, no business.
Yeah,
Go work for somebody and just take the wage, the weekly wage.
So what can I add to that? That most coaching clients, they think they know what they need.
Correct.
Sure.
Well said.
And it's not. It's the band-aid or the I don't know. I can't think of the right word, but it's not the core
Yeah.
reason for that. And
It's the symptom, not the cause.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I add an interesting flip side to this? Another statement of my belief. So you said most clients think they know what they need.
Yes.
I would add, and this is probably a useful one for another session that we can have, because we will go on and on this one, I know. Most coaches believe they know what their client needs.
Oh,
What do you do? What do you do when that little virus presents itself in your brain as a coach? I knew that we'd get a response from Bruce on that one.
good.
And I know that that's a big conversation.
Well, I was going to throw in there earlier, but I'll hang on to it for next time as well. But a lot of coaches are becoming subject matter expert coaches. They're coming in as sales coaches and marketing coaches. And so they're really focused on an area of the business, and they've ignored the fact that person, the experts are just back to consulting. We've gone a full circle, really, when Lawry, you and I started consulting many decades ago. We won't say how many, but
wasn't that interesting?
And then coaching.
We used to call that intellectual prostitution back then. I tell you, it was sell your soul.
That's another topic. And then we realized that we weren't really helping clients by being there every time they needed us, that they couldn't survive without us because they constantly needed us to come back in and do things. And
dependency.
We shifted to, we really need to leave behind a capability of them being self-reliant and self-dependent. And now we're seeing all these coaches, subject matter experts, calling themselves coaches. Are we really missing the point here, or am I missing?
Again, I think this is a really powerful topic for a whole new session, because it's quite deep, because it comes back to what is driving you, the coach or the aspiring coach, to be a coach. It comes back to your own drivers as a professional. I'll use that word loosely in some cases, because, well, spade's a spade, Bruce, you know how it is. Because this is an interesting thing, because we've seen a shift in the consulting world way back, 2 centuries ago when we started consulting, where it appeared to be right to create a dependency relationship with your client. You are the content expert. You are the guru. I need you. Please don't leave me. Mind you, I happily let you go. Right? So it was a delusion. Then we've moved to the extreme of, no, it's all pure journey of self-discovery. So you're just this sounding board, and you just throw the questions and the client's just doing the searching. It's a little bit like the old client-centered therapy of Carl Rogers' days. It's, the answer is within the patient. The answer is within the client. And the answer is, most likely it is, as long as there's no knowledge or skill gap. Fine. But then there's this interesting thing between pure non-dependency and pure dependency. What's the midway? What does interdependence mean? I think that might be part of what what the coaching role is, because there is actually a schism in the so-called coaching world globally around how much of it is about you just taking the client on a journey of their choice, and how much of it is you pulling them to a journey that you believe is right for them. Where is that midway? Well, is it a midway?
Well,
Don't know
guys,
the answer, but interesting conversation.
yeah, we are opening a whole new topic here. Very interesting. Would
This
love
is
to
called,
continue this
we like
conversation.
talking, so we need more sessions.
So let's book the next one and come back and finish that one. Great.
Yeah.
Bruce, anything you want to finish on?
I quite like what you've laid out here as permission, context, commitment, which leads to resilience, and address the cause, not just the symptom. Give people the willingness and the tools to address the cause of what they're having. For example, someone starts off saying, I need better people, and they get to the point where they understand they need to develop as a leader.
Right.
So I kind of like that little permission, context, commitment, resilience, and let's address the cause, not the symptom.
Awesome.
Mm.
Great summary. Thanks, Bruce. Lawry, we've done it.
Perfect summary. I love it. But no, I think that's sort of, whether it's a sequence or a summary, is spot on. And it is something that's going to be very powerful for current and would-be coaches to really get their minds around what role are they playing in that sort of sequence. Yeah.
So to leave it on that last note, need to recognize when there's a knowledge gap, whether it's a business knowledge gap or a personal knowledge gap, need to be able to recognize both to help the client through. And to your point, Bruce, to get to the core rather than dealing with the symptoms.
I'll add one other thing that's just come to mind as you've said, knowledge gap. I've heard for years the phrase, an educated client is an easy client. And I think alongside of this is the person, as part of their commitment, they self-educate so that what we have to offer is somewhere to connect to. It's already partly installed. So I think the final thing that I'd add to my list here is increased knowledge and education. It's really critical.
Fertile ground. The ground is ready.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys. Been fantastic session as usual.
Always great for the three of us to catch up and
And I'll schedule the next one for us.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Take care, guys.